in front of everybody else. I don't want to get anybody in trouble, but I have no idea how many test kits I'm getting from day to day. I have no ability to plan beyond 48 hours to get events set up in the community to make sure that we're on the front lines of this epidemic. I can't do my job. And she can't do her job because this administration has completely failed us, has botched the response to this pandemic. And Senate Republicans have let the country down as well. We need a robust, comprehensive package of support that gets money to schools, that gets money to counties, to cities, to states, to healthcare providers, to make sure that they have everything they need in order to plan more than one day at a time. And to this day, Senate Republicans still do not take this pandemic seriously. They still cower behind President Trump, afraid to admit that this is a worsening pandemic because they risk the ire of the President of the United States. The second point.
That's not.
I know Justice Roberts said some things at that hearing today that gave people some hope that he may rule to keep the ACA in place, but he doesn't have to be on the prevailing side. There are 5 justices on that court, 3 appointed by the president, 2 that have ruled against the ACA in the past, who can form a majority to strike down the entirety of the ACA. The ACA is still at risk so long as Republican Attorney General and the Trump administration are pursuing this case in court. And they will not give up. Republicans are not going to give up just because they lose a case or 2 in the court system. This is their holy grail, the dismantling of the ACA. We are in for a long, hard fight. And then finally, Senator Schumer referenced the support from Senate Republicans regarding these bogus lawsuits. Every day that this transition doesn't start, it's harder for us to actually correct course in November. We will have the right people at HHS. We will have the right people at the CDC. We will have the right people leading coronavirus response for the first time in a long time when Joe Biden assumes the White House. But as this transition does not get underway, as Republicans continue to support the president's bogus claims of voter fraud, it risks the Biden administration not having the resources and the transition period that it needs in order to get an effective anti-coronavirus effort up and running on day one. And so I would concur in Senator Schumer's remarks that it is time for this transition to begin.
I just add one more point to what just Senator Murphy was saying. These bogus lawsuits that the Republicans are supporting. The Republican case is legally weak and politically desperate. This is so different than it was in 2000. And yet they can't come to grips with the fact that President-elect Biden has won the election fair and square. And now more and more of them seem to be lining up behind these just patently ridiculous lawsuits. They're not going to succeed, I believe. But they're certainly delaying any real action. And it is just never ceases to amaze me how afraid just about every Republican senator, close to every Republican senator, is just so afraid of Donald Trump that they're willing to tie themselves in legal pretzels to not offend him. Questions on these subjects first. Yes.
Well, on the transition, we saw today Secretary of State Mike Pompeo say that there will be a smooth transition between Trump's 2 terms. What's your reaction to him?
My reaction to that is look at reality. Secretary Pompeo, Joe Biden has won. He's won the election. Now move on. Let's bring this country together and get things done. We have a COVID crisis raging. We don't have time for these kinds of games. Yes.
Kind of a transition 2-parter. The president fired his defense secretary the other day. How concerned are you that he could continue firing the few Senate-confirmed cabinet officials that are left in the remaining days? And the second part of it is, Republican senators have largely said, the president's entitled to the team he wants. Do you anticipate that attitude will continue when it's time to start confirming Joe Biden's cabinet appointees?
Well, let's hope, but we have found, for instance, on the deficit, we have found a 180-degree reversal. Deficit doesn't matter when you do tax cuts for the rich. Deficit matters when you're trying to help people who desperately need help in COVID relief. So it wouldn't surprise me if they do a 180-degree reversal. I hope not, for the sake of the country. There are so many messages in this election, but one of them is bring us together, which Joe Biden kept talking about, so we can move the country forward. Let's hope the Republicans start hearing that. They haven't yet, as these bogus lawsuits indicate.
And on the other part of that, do you worry about a Chris Wray or a Gina Haspel or some?
Yes, I worry about, I worry about the people who have shown some degree of integrity being removed. I definitely worry about that, because that's what Trump does, and he's getting more and more desperate as he realizes the election results. Go ahead, Manu.
Last week's election, you worked very hard with the DSCC, Senate Majority PAC, to try to take back the Senate. You guys could very well be in the minority next year. Did you personally miscalculate in the amount of effort and time you spent in the red states like South Carolina, in Montana, where your candidates lost?
We spent time in every state. And first, this group, we are happy. We've won the most important election that we face. We always said the #1 election is of the president, and we won. And when it comes to the Senate, it's not over at all. Georgia is close. People forget something. There's this conventional wisdom that Democrats don't win runoffs in Georgia. That's not true. There were 2 runoffs in 2018, not much Democratic money or effort behind them, and each was within 4%. So we are working very hard to win Georgia, and we believe that we have a very good chance of winning. Go ahead, next question.
You have to start planning and thinking about the next Congress, given that you believe that Biden has won this election. So if you guys end up in the minority, are you worried that the Senate GOP majority would block some of the progressive proposals like the Green New Deal that you guys are?
Public sentiment is everything, and I can't talk about a specific provision you mentioned, but they're going to want to see action. They're going to want to see our country move forward in helping people with the problems they face. COVID first, but many others as well.
Do you expect to see a lot of Democratic senators going to a Biden cabinet?
He has not consulted me on that issue.
On the ACA, it's no surprise that Democrats are not a fan of Trump's appointments to the Supreme Court. If the Supreme Court does end up upholding the law, would that change your opinion?
No, I don't trust this court at all, and as one of my colleagues said, they're going to keep trying. They're so passionate against the ACA that they will keep at it, and I have very little faith in this court in terms of upholding the ACA. Last one.
Yes, sir. Vice President, or President-elect Biden and Vice President-elect Harris are both Senate veterans. How is that going to make a difference next year?
I didn't hear the second person you mentioned, but Biden and Harris.
Harris.
Yeah, it's going to make a great difference. They know how to work with us. We know them. We're comfortable with them. I've been talking to President-elect Biden regularly on a whole gamut of issues, and I think the Democrats in the Senate will have a very close relationship. And of course, we're all so proud of Kamala Harris, and she again has been in complete touch with us on so many different issues.
Was Biden the vice president that was able to come up here and work with Senator McConnell, as you recall? Have times changed so much that
Well, we'll see.
relationship?
Joe Biden has said he wants to bring the country together to get some real good things done. We agree with that. Thank you, everybody.
Use your mobile devices, laptop, or phone, and go to cspan.org/election for easy access to election 2020 results, the balance of power in Congress, our latest video, live and on demand, of the transition of power. Go to cspan.org/election.
Cool.
Book TV on C-SPAN 2 has top nonfiction books and authors every weekend. Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern, from the recent virtual Southern Festival of Books, authors Sarah Smarsh, Thomas Burton, and Wayne Winkler reflect on life in Appalachia. And Wanda Lloyd and David Pilgrim discuss the Jim Crow era in the South. Then at 7:45 p.m., New Yorker staff writer Evan Osnos discusses his book, Joe Biden, The Life, the Run, and What Matters Now. On Sunday, at 1 p.m. Eastern, from the Southern Festival of Books, journalist Matthew Van Meter talks about his book, Deep Delta Justice, about a civil rights case which helped to reaffirm the right to a trial by jury in most criminal cases. And authors Stephanie Gorton and Chris Hamby offer their thoughts on investigative journalism and its role in a democracy. Then, at 9 p.m. Eastern on Afterwards, law professor John Fabian Witt talks about his book, American Contagions, Epidemics in the Law, from Smallpox to COVID-19. He's interviewed by Georgetown University law professor Lawrence Gostin. Watch Book TV this weekend on C-SPAN 2.
Next, former federal prosecutor and co-host of The View, Sunny Hostin, talks about her life and career and her personal experiences with identity and injustice.